They did?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm figuring that was the appropriate.
Yeah. They're like, yeah, some teachers might be in front of us.
I'm doing this for my government class. I get to sit in a Who'd have thought?
Okay, we're going to reconvene to open session. This is the regular meeting of the Albany Unified School District Board of Education for Tuesday, October 24th, 2017. May we have a roll call, please?
Student Member Sowell.
Present.
Student Board Member Athanayak.
Present.
Member Trutain.
Present.
Member Clark.
Here.
Member Charlie Blanchard.
Here.
Vice President Stapleton Gray.
Here.
President Black.
Here. Those who wish to participate, we will have the Pledge of Allegiance.
Ready to begin.
The reading of the AUSD mission and vision statement.
The mission of the Albany Unified School District is to provide excellent public education that empowers all to achieve their fullest potential as productive citizens. AUSD is committed to creating comprehensive learning opportunities in a safe, supportive, and collaborative environment, addressing the individual needs of each student.
Thank you. The board took no action in closed session. Does anyone want any changes to the agenda before we approve it? Okay, seeing none, can we have a motion on the agenda?
Move we approve the agenda?
Have a second?
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Now have a recognition of the many wonderful groups that raise funds for Albany and the Albany School District.
Thank you, President Black, trustees, student board members, and members of the community. It is always my pleasure to annually say thank you to our fundraising groups who do so much for our students and for our staff at Albany Unified School District. And, you know, we do have certificates. It's just a very small way, just a token to say thank you very much. You all work hard, tirelessly, and with a lot of dedication to providing programs and services, grants to our teachers, and programs and services for our students. So this is just a small way to say thank you. And so I have some certificates that I would like to pass out. And they basically say Certificate of Recognition in honor of your commitment and dedication to the students of Albany Unified School District. We extend to you our warmest regards and sincere appreciation. And so if I could have President Black please come down and help me pass out certificates. And then when you come up, can you stay up here because I do need to take a group photo. Okay. So the first one is for the Ocean View Elementary School PTA. Cornell Elementary School PTA. Marin Elementary School PTA. Albany Middle School PTA. Albany High School Parent-Teacher Student Association. And actually, can we have one of our student board members accept on their behalf? Albany Athletic Boosters. Albany Music Fund. Albany Education Foundation. School Care. The Albany Community Foundation. And the Albany Rotary Club.
Does anyone want to comment? Jacob?
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody who came up and for the other people who weren't able to make it tonight, and just acknowledge that our students are very lucky to have all of you people working extra time to support our students, and it's much appreciated. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Well, I can second that, but I can't really top that. That's exactly how I think we all feel. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Amy?
This has been twice said now, but I'd like to echo those sentiments, and thank you for your hard work.
Anyone else? Okay, again, thank you for all you do for Albany. Make a great difference in the schools. Really wouldn't have all the programs we have without the hard work you people do. So, moving on. We have the consent calendar. Does anyone want to comment on or pull any items in the consent calendar? Do we have any comment on the consent calendar from the public? Okay, seeing none, we need a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I move we approve the consent calendar.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Board and Superintendent report.
Thank you. I just want to make sure I thought I heard Charlie speaking. Usually my superintendent's report is one that is very upbeat, but tonight I wanted to share that Katie Evans fought a long and hard, Kathy Evans, thank you. Fought a long and hard battle. She was a teacher at ACC, lost her battle to leukemia, and passed this weekend. Kathy started at ACC, the Albany Children's Center, in 1989 as a part-time teacher. In 1990, she became a fifth grade teacher at Cornell, and was a kindergarten teacher for several years, preceding her retirement. And I just wanted to say that it's very sad that she's passed, and our well wishes and our condolences to her family, and just let her know that our thoughts are with her. I know there's a gathering this weekend that I will be attending, and I know that many of you may have had children that were in her class. So I'd I know there's some folks wanted to share.
Yeah, Miss Kathy was very close with us. My son was in her kindergarten class 5 years ago, and my wife volunteered in the class a lot, and that's how she got involved in the PTA. And now she's a yard supervisor at Cornell, and Miss Kathy was just so warm and welcoming. She's going to be missed a lot. And my son wrote a letter for her. I'd like to read it. It says, "Dear Miss Kathy, you were my favorite teacher. You were my favorite teacher because you were nice. You taught me and the whole class fun stuff, and you helped me go to first grade and every other grade. You were my first teacher and taught me everything I needed to know about school. You taught me important things I do so much today." From Troy, and that's my son, and we're going to miss you, Miss Kathy. You were a wonderful person.
Thank you, Jacob.
And I know that Charlie Blanchard, who is with us remotely, would like to say a few words. There is a little bit of a delay. Charlie, did you want to say a few words?
Yeah, thanks, Belle. I am here. I wanted to add my condolences to Kathy's family. She was our family's introduction to the Albany schools. She was my daughter's kindergarten teacher 26 years ago, and she was a wonderful introduction to the school district. I know she's been a wonderful teacher for generations of students since then, and I'm very sorry to hear this news.
Thanks, Charlie. Anyone else want to comment? Okay, our condolences to the family. Let's see. Any other board comment? Russ?
Other issues.
Unrelated, yes.
Yeah, so Kim and I have been participants in the facilities planning committee, and I think we sort of as a body, we will report out to the board at a later date, but I think it's very important to raise some things earlier than later because they impinge on other things. So, for example, if we're going to rebuild one of the elementary schools, where are we going to move everything in the interim? One of the ideas is to move them into existing space. So if we've built it at San Gabriel, if we've built an annex at the high school, we've got enough capacity to probably squeeze everybody in if we don't admit out-of-district students. So that strategy is quite possible, but takes another possibility off the table. If we're talking about raising additional funds through taking out-of-district students, doing that or assuming we can do that down the line would be problematic. So I'd just like to I guess, raise the issue that where we are working in committees apart from the whole, we ought to make sure that all of the assumptions get passed to each other in sessions like this. We have the opportunity and the obligation really in the public agenda session to raise what are all the parts of us doing separately. And that discussion, I think, has been encouraging. It's one way we can manage. If we had to bus kids to Emeryville, we'd have to get those funds out of the general fund, and that means doing less of all the other things we'd like to do. If we squeeze into the schools we have, we can manage, but we can't squeeze into the schools we have if we enroll 400 more kids. So it's good that we raise all the issues and all the assumptions across the various groups that are meeting.
Thanks, Ross. Anyone else?
I would want to say that I look forward to seeing a report back at the next board meeting or shortly thereafter from the facilities task force so that we can discuss all of the options more fully. A different committee that I'm working on is the website update committee. It's not a complete and total revamp, but we have asked each of the school offices and sent out feelers to other stakeholders so that we can try to make a real difference in the ability of the website to be an efficient way to get information to parents, students, and to community members. So that's underway also.
Thanks. Anyone else? Jacob?
Yeah, I just want to report out on a couple of things I did the last few weeks. A couple of weeks ago, I went to the Cornell PTA budget meeting where Val and Alan were there, and there was a lot of parents there, and I want to thank them for showing up and to keep showing up to things. You know, these budget cuts are upcoming, and we'd like to hear from as many people as possible. I also attended the town hall meeting last Saturday and was there for all the sessions, and it was great to reach out to people, to speak to the parents. Some of the teachers were there, and most importantly, I was able to speak some of the 8th grade students toward the end of the day. And I'm working my best to reach out to them and see if there's a way that I can possibly work something out where I can meet with the students and talk to them directly. A lot of times we ask for input, and we go to the parents and we go to the teachers, and a lot of times we forget the kids, and they're the ones who are going to be most directly impacted. So I'm working with the students that I met, to try to get something together, and I'm still in the process of trying to work something out where I can meet with the high school students as well, because I want them to know that their voice is heard. And I've just been trying to do the best I can to reach out to as many people as possible. And I want to thank everybody who's been willing to give me the time to talk with them. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. That brings us to the student board members report.
Albany Middle School is holding a drive to get supplies to the victims affected by the fires. Go Cobras.
The 6th grade A, 7th grade A, and 8th grade A middle school volleyball teams beat Prospect Sierra and King Middle School yesterday. Nice job.
Albany Middle School will be on a short day schedule for all of Conference Week, October 23rd to the 30th.
The Marin School Halloween Parade will be this Tuesday, October 31st. It will feature a Halloween costume parade starting at 12:15 in the big playground.
The Ocean View Fall Festival and Walkathon was this Saturday, October 21st, from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m.
Ocean View Elementary will join the National Bullying Prevention Center and recognize Unity Day, which is this Wednesday, October 25th.
Miss Hodham's kindergarten class, along with their 5th grade buddies in Miss Hughes' class, are working on a project to help children impacted by the fires in Sonoma. They've made contact with an organization called Backpacks for Petaluma, which is an organization dedicated to raising money and donations to outfit backpacks for students who were displaced by the fires.
In addition, Albany High is hosting a canned food drive for the Alameda County and also a toiletries drive for those affected during the Santa Rosa fires.
Albany High School is also celebrating Homecoming Week this week, which is a celebration of class unity. Let's go Cougars.
Thanks. Any questions for our students? Well, that brings us to persons to address the board on matters not on the agenda. As you know, if the matter is not on the agenda, the board can listen and hear what you have to say, but can only ask clarifying questions. We can't respond or react other than to possibly direct the staff to look into an issue. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Be mindful of other people who want to speak. If there are a lot of people who want to speak, we'll have to cut off comment at some point. So be mindful of that. And if somebody else has said what you want to say, you can just come up and say, I agree with them. You don't have to repeat it. Thank you.
And student board member Sewell is going to keep our timing. Yes? Can you? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ann Zolvagari, and I have 3 school-aged children, but only one still in Albany Unified School District. And I feel like the district needs to make a clear, defined public litmus test for curriculum that's set at the board level, so that all the teachers can look at their curriculum and test against a very simple litmus test. My daughter is in 4th grade at Marin. Unfortunately, in these first 7 weeks, we have faced many questionable curriculum decisions. I'm also on the ACT TK through 5 curriculum committee, the new committee that was formed, and I've been involved in trying to get curriculum changes almost for a year now. But it is a larger curriculum litmus test process that needs the help, vote, and the guidance of the board. This issue is just as important as passing a working budget. Long term, I feel like it's even more so. if the board voted for a district-wide litmus test, teachers and teacher groups could ask, for example, does this curriculum choice teach children to be knowledgeable, just, global citizens? It could be simple like that. And then would teachers still use the 1960 book, Island of the Blue Dolphins, in 4th grade if the board had a clear litmus test? The Island of the Blue Dolphins is based on a deserted indigenous woman. She was deserted in, I think, 1835, who watched wild dogs eat her infant alive. She was found 18 years later and died 6 weeks after missionaries, quote, saved her. The novel stereotypes indigenous people, romanticizing Karana's tribe, demonizing the Aleuts, and obscures our common humanity with all indigenous people. Just like movies from the 1950s. It was written in 1960. It was taught when I was a child in 5th grade, and it seems like we can do better in Albany. The 4th grade Character Matters play is filled with questionable advice about characters. Do we treat people with mental illness like this? If a person doesn't tell the truth, it might be because they're scared, not because they're a rat. Count to 10, walk away, take a breath, you're okay is not good advice for people in situations of abuse. This advice is unethical, invalidating, and silencing, and I would never give this advice to my children, yet that's the advice that's told to Cinderella in the situation of her forced labor and abuse. And you would tell someone, be safe, find allies. There's so much good advice you could give children. And my older daughter, who was in the play 4 years ago, it's such a catchy jingle that is still in her head. She can still sing it 4 years later, but it's such bad advice. I would like to encourage the Albany Unified School District Board to vote for a clear, defined public litmus test for whether or not curriculum material is worthy of being taught to our children. The bad news is I have set 10 examples from the first 7 weeks of school in just one AUSD classroom. The good news, last summer's new State Board of Education's framework provides excellent guidance for litmus test ideas, and I listed the link here. So these are for all of you to look at.
Thank you.
I have a few minutes, so thank you.
Anyone else? Okay.
Thank you.
I have a staff report on promoting safe, supportive, and collaborative environments for all students and staff.
Thank you, President Black. Trustees, I'm going to turn this item over to Marie Williams, who's been giving our Safe Schools update.
Good evening, Superintendent Williams, Board President, board members, and community. I have our regularly scheduled Promoting Safe, Supportive, and Collaborative Environments report for you. This evening, I wanted to share just a little bit of information about a new initiative that has been launched at our elementary schools and also at the Children's Center, and I believe also at the middle school to some degree. And this is No Place for Hate, which is an initiative sponsored by the Anti-Defamation League. Our schools, elementary teachers at the beginning of this school year participated in professional development called A Classroom of Difference. And through that professional development, explored ways to talk about anti-bias and think about ways to provide supportive environments for children. One of the features of the No Place for Hate curriculum is that it can be incorporated into programs that are already existing. And so, as we know, there are several programs in place at the elementary school. Second Step, hold on, check my notes here, is one of those examples. And Speak Up, Be Safe is an initiative that's happening K through 8, and also the Conflict Managers Program. And so the principles are being very mindful about how No Place for Hate can be incorporated into those programs that are already in place. Some of the activities that are taking place include looking at ways to incorporate No Place for Hate with the curriculum that's already in place. Many of the schools are seeking a No Place for Hate designation so that the schools would be no place for hate schools. And you do that through completing a number of activities throughout the year. At the Children's Center, there will be some professional development for teachers and also for parents. The school tomorrow will participate in a Unity Day, as will Ocean View participate in Unity Day tomorrow. Encourage you to wear orange in support of Unity Day tomorrow. Marin School is hosting a parent education night with Dr. Rodolfo Mendoza-Denten. He'll be talking about how we can come together to talk to our children about discrimination and inequality. That is happening on November the 7th at Marin School from 7 to 8:30 p.m. At Cornell, in addition to the activities that all of the sites are undertaking, they also are working on developing a common language to talk about anti-bias and stereotypes in their classrooms, that language to be shared not only with the school but also with parents. And at Ocean View, in addition to their Unity Day, they have designated their student council and site leadership teams to proactively work on building collaborative and safe environments. And I would just have to say this is an exciting, that particular council is exciting for me personally. My daughter is a first grader and came home very excited to tell me about how she has been selected for student council. And Mommy, our job is to think about ways to make school a great place to be. So I am really proud of her and really proud of all of the students that are engaging in these topics of great import for our schools and for our community. All of our schools are also looking to extend the professional development that started in August and to keep that conversation going. I know that as part of the professional development that teachers participated in October, there was some conversation about how do we continue to move these initiatives forward in talking about anti-bias and about how to create climates that support all students. So that is my short report for you this evening, if you have questions or comments.
Questions or comments? What? Audience. Thank you for your report. We now have a few review and action items. Most of them fairly routine. We have an independent contractor agreement with Hip Hop Scholastics.
Thank you. And actually, Board, I'm going to actually go to the dais because I'm going to ask our ACT co-chair, LaRon Mallard, to join me. Thank you. The purpose of this item is for the Board of Education to approve the independent contract with Hip Hop Scholastics to provide facilitation services for the Albany Coming Together ACT Task Force. In April 2017, I created a task force to address issues of racism, inequity, and oppression in Albany schools. The ACT Task Force consists of staff, students, parents, and community members who work in one of seven committees. We have a curriculum development committee at both elementary and secondary, student engagement, staff engagement, community engagement, parent engagement, and technology, digital media engagement. And ACT came together and we decided to create a steering committee. And the steering committee consists of our two co-chairs, Bonnie Wolf and LaRon Mallard, as well as the chairs from all of our subcommittees and myself. And we actually have somebody who's also from another area. He's an attorney, but he works with us as a volunteer. And so this committee has worked very, very hard. The subcommittees have met, some many times over the summer, some not so many times. But the steering committee has been meeting and worked really hard to create a purpose statement as well as to create a timeline and some deliverables. And one of the things that we realize is that everybody on these committees is either an employee working very, very hard in their jobs and also a lot of volunteers. And so the group came together and we sought a facilitator who is an expert in the area of bringing us together and working with students as well as with adults to deal with some of these issues. So the task force purpose is for the committees to meet, for them to do some research and make recommendations on best practices, for each of the subcommittees to provide a report to the steering committee. It is the steering committee who then is going to work to create a final report that is going to come to the board at the first February board meeting. So actually, I have LaRon here, and Itoko Garcia is the person that we're bringing forward as part of the contract. I do want you to know that part of the process was that we sought out experts in the field. We went through a vetting process. There was an interview process that was pretty robust. We did background checks, and we came upon Itoko Garcia, who lives in the Bay Area, has worked with students and families in the Bay Area. And so I'm recommending that the board approve this. And LaRon, would you like to add additional comments?
Echoing what Val said about the steering committee, putting in a lot of time and effort over the summer and really trying to chart the path for ACT. There was a outpouring of community support and involvement for this task force, and breaking it up into the committees, or folks volunteered for. The steering committee bore the responsibility of how to galvanize that support and to provide a way forward to have effective and robust recommendations to bring to you all for approval, and the district as well for approval. But as we said, we recognize that most of the people involved were volunteers, and some of the skill and expertise required to really pull hundreds of people who were involved. We're near 100 members in ACT, aren't we? So how to pull that together definitely required more expertise than we had in our volunteer ranks, and some of the folks who were employees of the district as well. So through our process, we did find Itoko, and he's here today if you want to stand up. So we thought he hit the mark with what this community needs, and also having the background and the expertise and experience to help us get to where we need to, one, for February to make the recommendations, and then, looking forward to as far as the implementation plan as well. Yeah.
Thanks. Do we have any questions or comments from the board? Yep.
Yeah. So there was no facilitator planned for this task force when you started.
That's correct.
Yeah. And the budget that this comes out of is the budget that was intended for programs to put in the schools. So this $10,000 that you're asking for is then we can do $10,000 less of action with our students.
So the LCAP was designed for the planning and implementation for curriculum and programs, specifically for ACT to do its work. So what I did was I wanted to make sure that we spent the bulk of the amount of money for this year, which is $75,000 on the, I'm sorry, 70, no.
Oh, 75,000.
Thank you. 75,000. That the bulk of that would be used for implementation of the recommendations, or as many as we could. So part of it is for planning, and we have 3 years in the LCAP set aside for that. 75,000 for the 17-18 school year, 50,000 for the 18-19 school year, and 25,000 for the 19-20 school year.
So it seems to me that, I've done a whole lot of committee work, and I can tell you anybody who's been a PTA officer at any of our schools know that it's far beyond what you should ask of any volunteer. The PTA presidents that were here earlier, and the president of school care and whatever, they put in, it's a part-time job to take one of those positions. And they do that. So it's clear to me that somewhere here between the conception of the task force and the delivering of the recommendations, that it seems like you guys have gotten stuck. So I'd appreciate knowing, is it particular committees that haven't been able to come through with recommendations? Are half of them done and half of them not done? I think we have some people here that are on some of the various committees. It wasn't part of the original plan. This $75,000 was for the implementation of the programs, which is down the road. The choices haven't even been made. So it seems to me like, we're kind of like walking around the elephant in the room, which is something has not gone right with the task force.
So it's not that something didn't go right with the task force. Back in April, when I wanted to create this task force, it was to bring interested members of the community together to get their input and their leadership as we worked on issues around racism and oppression in Albany schools. The overwhelming and wonderful outpouring of volunteerism ended up with about 100 people. And so then we then began to break them down into these subcommittees. So what is surfaced, and I think Laurent can probably add more to this, is a desire and a need to have someone who has the expertise not only in organizing and bringing these groups together, but has a specific area of expertise on these topics around engaging parents, engaging the community, engaging students to deal with issues around racism and oppression. And so the steering committee got together, and we had quite a few meetings and discussions about a desire and a need to have a facilitator get us to a point where we can make good, sound recommendations and make sure that the voices are heard in all of the committees. To answer your question, a couple of committees have met several times over the summer. One committee has recommendations that they are ready to present. Another committee is almost ready. Some committees have met 2 or 3 times. One committee has only met once. I don't know if you want to add anything.
We have more questions.
So the task of the facilitator is going to be in the during November and December to meet individually with all those committees, and so you said there's one that has the recommendations ready, and the rest have not. One you said is nearly ready, so there's 4 that haven't made recommendations, and yet they've been asked, they've been queued, they've been.
Well, this is
where are your recommendations?
This gives you some idea of the task that we're trying to tackle, right? This is not trivial. This is not just we're all on different schedules. Some of the committees, we know who they are, but it takes more to make this happen. And certainly around the discussions, and you should come to our steering committee meeting sometime, and you'll start to get the gravity of the conversations that need to be had, and certainly the skill that 1 and 2 facilitating with the various different groups. He's going to be doing outreach as well, because some of these groups, like I said, we have volunteers on the steering committee, but we need more help for people who's obviously skilled as well to go into those groups, pull them together, start to galvanize thought, help them get on to the track to bring the recommendations forward. So there is a lot of planning that's going into this and a lot of effort, but the skill is not simply like we're all talking about 3rd grade curriculum. I mean, it's wide and varied from the committee names as you see there.
To answer your question, yes. Part of this contract is that Etoco would be meeting with each of the subcommittees, is also doing outreach to students because we want the student voice to be stronger, and we'll also be meeting with our steering committee. We meet twice a month, so he'll be meeting with us as well.
Let me ask, Navin, you're one of the students that were on the student engagement subcommittee, right? I thought you were.
I was, and then I stepped down to somewhere else to pursue that leadership.
Vin, could you speak into the mic?
Yeah, sorry. So I was on that committee for its inception. However, I stepped down along with, I think, someone else to let other students pursue that leadership opportunity. So someone else is running that. I haven't been involved with that.
So does the subcommittee exist at this point?
Stand?
No. This is the committee
For the task force?
Yeah, the task force.
Student engagement.
I'm not too sure. I remember they did have meetings, but I'm not sure if anyone actually followed through and went to them. I haven't talked to that committee in a while.
We do have 2 students who sit on our steering committee to represent the student engagement piece.
Okay, but it is listed as one of the subcommittees. So, but it doesn't exist as a subcommittee anymore? There's just the 2 students on the steering committee?
It does exist as and what we've had, this is part of the help that we need as well, because as you know, what we want, the recommendations and the whole purpose of this will affect students, right? So as you can know, by the summer and everything that's gone on, people go away. It's very hard to get students once they're not and they're sitting at their emails. School has started. They're back from vacation. So there's been a little bit of a lag as far as activity as far as a student goes. But the part of ACT is to have the presence and say that, hey, how do we, reach out? And there's a few different student groups who are active. So part of this, and they're actively touch all of the student body. So part of Mitoko's charge is to sort of bring that together to make sure that we get, an effective student voice and to bring some recommendations sort of from those different groups of student activities. How many subcommittees are even in that at the school level?
We have STAND, we have Speak, thank you. We also have the Student Equity Advisory Committee that would want to also provide input.
So, Laurent, do you think that the scope was just too large for the task force? Is that why, here? Because originally the idea was that the recommendations were going to come to the board in December, right? So we're 2 months behind schedule, and lots of people want to, they want to see some action on this. They want to see us get those recommendations and act on them and start the implementation phase. So, in your opinion, was this, was the scope too big for the task force?
Here's the rub with that, because people say, this is a planning phase of it, and we've had the discussions. It's like, this is the planning stage. This is the part where we bring the recommendations for approval, and so when we go to the whole point about here is the implementation phase of it, right? So we certainly found that we had the need for this planning phase for those 2 parts of it. One who was skilled in facilitation, and one in inclusion and systems of oppression, system change. Having that individual being able to go and help galvanize some of these groups that, frankly, that have probably not have official meetings, but certainly talking about, what they think they want to do. But that's the scope of it is big. But I think the whole point of it is, in this planning phase, this skill set is definitely needed from the bandwidth that parents and teachers have, and being able to get people to come together. We need a catalyst. We need somebody. We need more horsepower, if you will, that can help us with that.
Okay, well, I'm going to give other people a chance, but you understand that the root of my concern is that I was seeing the 75,000 as, everybody on the planning part was a volunteer, and that we would have $75,000 to do things in the schools to create change and to make change. And it's hard for me to give up any of those dollars, for committee work, because I want to see those dollars go into students.
Well, you wouldn't want to also have that 75,000 go and not have anything really substantial and meaningful that people really had a chance to organize around and give real thought to. And that's really the importance of this planning phase is to make sure that we get those committees and give real thought to and hear their voices and make sure, and that takes some facilitation, and that takes some there's going to be conversations, difficult conversations, and so we trust in Etoko's skill and expertise to help us bring that there and get us there for February through the planning phase and get ready for implementation.
Okay, so does anyone else on the board have questions or comments? Jacob?
Yeah, I'm looking at under the key questions and answers, and it says the current LCAP allocates $50,000 for the ACT work, and then another $25,000. I can't find that. I'm looking at the LCAP right now.
So if you look at the LCAP, and they sent the board a correction, it's under the budget page for the LCAP 3.1.6, and it has
3.1.6.
So it has the
current. I don't see that 3.16. I see a 3.15, and then it stops, and then it says budgeted other services supplemental 25,000. I'm not seeing.
No, there's. Can you pull up the LCAP? It's for 17-18, it's 75,000. For 18-19, 50,000, and for 19-20, 25,000.
It's page 103 and 104 of the LCAP. Let me try to. I'm going to pull it on the.
I want to make sure we're looking at the same document. I couldn't even find it on the district website, so I had to punch in Albany, California LCAP on Google, and this is what comes up, and it says LCAP 2017-18.
If you go into the quick links of the homepage, and it'll say Local Control Accountability Plan. Scroll down, please. Go where it says Show All. It should say LCAP.
On the district website, under quick links.
Show All.
And then click on that.
It shouldn't be this hard to find it, Val.
Got a lot of quick links.
I mean, it's really important to have it just at the end on the show all. I mean, so, okay, I'm there, and then current LCAP, yeah, that's where Google took me.
3.1.6, the district will strengthen.
What page?
It's on, is it on the screen, Alan? Under 3.1.6, the district will strengthen parent and, oh, thank you. Okay. To address program improvements in curriculum, professional development, student engagement, parent engagement, and then there is a budget page following. So if you look down where it says, so the 15,000, the 5,000 there, that's 20,000. That is not for ACT. That is for the Black African American Parent Engagement Group and the Latino Parent Engagement Group. And then under there where it says 75,000, that is for ACT. And then, so if you look at
next year out, it's another additional 50,000. And then next year after that, it's another. So it's 150,000 total.
That is correct.
Okay. Do we have other questions or comments? I just want to make a brief comment that I appreciate all the work that you guys have been doing and all the thought you've been putting into this. And I'm going to trust your process. And if you feel that this is the best way to get the work done, then I'm going to support it. Sure.
Hi, my name is Ann Zolfagari again, and I'm on the. Thank you. I'm on the TK through 5th Curriculum Committee, and we met at least 15 times, and we put hundreds of hours of effort into, I think we turned in a document that our group turned in the document. Clementina is the chairperson of our group, and we gave recommendations. Clementina met with Val to make sure that our recommendations would be something that actually could be implemented. And but from my experience of my daughter's, first 7 weeks of school, I feel like this needs to be rethought, how the steering committee works, because it's almost like there needs to be the litmus test, and then parents or teachers or anyone can, there needs to be some kind of dialogue in the community about what is appropriate material to be taught and what could be improved. Certainly, so much poetry, so many choices of books, to make these children grow up and be better citizens, global citizens, international citizens, national citizens, digital citizens, environmental citizens. We have so much work to cover, and I feel like so much of it is either offensive or it's not addressing it. So I'm of the mindset that if the people that were part of the ACT took it seriously and got together and met and tried to, put their ideas down on paper and then we were trying to get, meet the December, and then it was the January deadline. That's going to be just one phase of this. This has to be an ongoing dialogue so that we address these issues that they seem to be everywhere. Now that we've had the Instagram issue, it's very pervasive, these issues of obscuring our common humanity when we teach about people from different periods of time, from different cultures, from different ethnic backgrounds. So that's my sense of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone else want to comment or questions? Ross?
Just to add to Anne's comments, when you said Clementina, you mean Clementina Duran.
Okay. Val, I'm going to ask for a roll call vote so that each member, if they want to express a reason for their vote, can do so. First we need a motion, which we don't have yet. Is anyone willing to move to approve this contract?
Before you vote, is there any desire to hear from Itoko Garcia before you vote?
Well, I'd love to, but I don't want to put him on the spot. If he would like to speak, it would be great.
Good evening, members of the board. Thank you for having me here this evening, and I appreciate the opportunity to address some of your very valid concerns. First, I would like to say your staff has done a great deal of work in vetting this process and in getting to this point. One thing that I would like to offer that hasn't yet to be discussed as part of this contract is actually doing work with students and supporting the development of a multimedia public service announcement about what Albany does stand for and what positive school climate looks like. So I did want to offer that to the board. This is not just about facilitation or community engagement. While I do believe those things are critically important, this is a very sensitive topic. We need to make sure that folks remain engaged. As several speakers have said, this is not something that will be accomplished in a one-off conversation. And so just to speak to the concern that you raised, Trustee, this is not simply not working with students. This will have a touch with students, and this will produce a tangible product that will not only update you, the trustees of the board, on the work of ACT, as well as begin the process of creating a safer, more inclusive school climate, but will also update all of the members of the community, teachers, other students, other stakeholders of the community. One of the first steps that we're planning on taking is actually also working with teachers and surveying teachers about the ways that they most will be responsive in terms of communication. It seems like one of the big issues has been around communicating the work of ACT and the progress. And so we want to make sure that students are being communicated with regularly, that parents and teachers are being communicated with regularly, and that you, the Board of Trustees, and Superintendent Williams have valid, up-to-date reports from all of these committees, and that there's a very, very clear process that is being communicated and progress that is being communicated.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so does anyone care to move that we approve this contract?
I will move we approve this contract.
All right, is there a second? No, I'll second it. Okay, so can we have a roll call, please, starting with the students? And Mahima, if you have a statement, you can make that before you vote.
Student Board Member Sawal.
Abstaining.
Student Board Member Ataniak.
I will abstain as well.
Member Trutain.
Abstain.
Okay, you know, we do have a board handbook policy against abstentions. You can abstain, but it's better to express your actual opinion.
She can abstain.
Well,
Yeah, she can. Of course she can.
Yeah, okay.
But it is in the handbook that
I'm trying to.
we not abstain.
I will make it. I'm trying to process the information that I received that I could only receive in this public session. So
You can also move to table it to bring it back at another meeting, and that would take precedence over the motion that's standing, and we would vote on that motion first. If you're not ready to vote.
I don't know, but time is of the essence here. So it's not like many other issues. I feel like that I would just table, but I think that this committee really does need to get their recommendations made and make progress so that we can get to implementation. Is it possible to skip me for a moment and let the others vote?
Sure.
Okay.
Jacob?
I'll vote to approve it.
Thank you. Charlie?
Charlie, do you, your vote, please?
I presume the motion is to approve the contract. I couldn't hear that.
That is correct.
And if that's the motion, I vote yes.
Thank you. Ross?
Aye.
Okay, I vote aye. Coming back to you, Kim, you can vote no if you like to now, and it'd still pass.
No, I won't do that. I'm going to go with the wisdom of the board, and I think that I trust the wisdom of the board. So I will add my aye vote and support this.
Thank you. Jacob?
Yeah, I'd like to add one more thing, Paul. If she wanted to abstain, you should have just let her abstain. You know, you're putting people on a spot like that, and then you come back to her and force her if she wants to table it, you know? I mean, it's not all right. She has an opinion, and she can say whatever she wants to say, and it happens too much where you...
Jacob, we're going to be reviewing the board handbook in a later meeting this year, and you're welcome to object to any item in the handbook at that time.
Well, I'm just
Until then, the
objecting
board
to-
has agreed to abide by the handbook, so that's the way I'm going to run the meeting. Thank you.
No,
Moving on to
don't
the
thank
next
me
item.
and thank you and dismiss me like that.
Next item on the agenda is... this topic is closed, I'm sorry. Next item on the agenda is public hearing to receive sunshine negotiation proposal from School Employees International Union.
Thank you, President Black, members of the board. This item...
This is a public hearing. So
I'm sorry, it's a public hearing. My apologies.
Open the public hearing. Go ahead.
Val, did you want to let me speak?
I'm sorry, we're on the next agenda item, which is the public hearing for Service Employees International Union Sunshine Negotiations Proposal. So we are actually on that item. Okay.
Sorry.
So I'd like to, this is to approve the sunshine, and I'm sorry, Cynthia Tia is here to present this information to the board.
So I'm already here. I know that you have a meeting to run, and if you want to call
You're
any...
out of order. Could you please sit down?
But if you want to call any authorities, that's fine. My small comment is that the committees that are already in place, they've had consultants before, and I just want to caution that you make sure that whatever consultants you guys have, that they actually do some kind of action, that they just don't come in, spend the district's money, and then leave, and nothing actually for action gets done. So that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
This is to conduct a public hearing to receive the sunshine negotiation from the School Employees International Union. If there are any questions, you can see that SEIU has sunshined Articles 1 through 20, which are all the articles in the contract.
Thanks. Okay, any questions or comments on this item? And then we're going to close the public hearing, and then we need a motion to approve reception of this sunshine agreement.
I motion to approve the sunshine agreement.
Does anybody second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. We have a recommendation to designate certificated employees to permanent and probationary status.
Thank you. I'll let Mr. Tia is going to take this agenda item as well.
Every year, the district designates employees to permanent and probationary status. Sometimes they have moved from probationary 1 or 2 to permanent status, or from probationary 1 to 2. It's just a practice that we do to designate the status of the employees, certificated employees.
Okay, do we have any questions or comments on this? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the designation of certificated employees to permanent and probationary status as listed in the board packet?
I move to approve as stated.
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Student teaching affiliation agreement with Western Governors University.
I will turn this over to Cynthia Tia as well.
In order to have student teachers from different universities, we need to first enter in an agreement with them. This is the first time we've used the Western Governors University, so we are bringing it as a board item. If it is approved tonight, if we bring it again in subsequent years, then it goes on to the consent.
Okay, do we have any questions on this one? Okay, I've got a question. Normally when we have somebody who's going to be working closely with students, the contract has provisions for fingerprinting and for TB tests. Those provisions are not in this contract.
It does say that they will provide that, or if we want, we may specifically designate what they need to do.
I'm sorry, where does it say that?
Let's see. Number 7, background check.
Right.
On the second page, under WGU responsibilities.
Right, it doesn't specifically mention a fingerprint, though I assume that would probably be part of a background check.
Correct.
But the tuberculosis testing is not mentioned.
That is, you are correct. I didn't notice that. Most, and I will check with them, most universities, in order for a person to enter a program, must have a TB clearance for the program.
All right, but it's not specifically in this contract, so I would want to make sure that that's provided for, since we require it of our volunteers.
Sure.
And any other contract, I'd like to see it in here too.
I'll make sure that I will make sure that that is part of their entrance program, whatever they're called.
Requirement.
Thank you. Interest requirement.
On your word and with that understanding, I'll accept that. Do we have any other comments or questions on this? Do we have a motion on this contract?
I motion to approve this agreement with Western Governors University.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you.
Okay. Albany Unified School District goals.
Thank you. This was a review and discussion item at the last board meeting, and the board asked that this be brought back. President Black, you provided the narrative for each of the goals, and it is in the packet, and it's also up here on the screen.
All right, these were basically the notes that I took from being at the meeting and then watching the meeting again on YouTube, and taking notes as I watched it. So I believe this is what the board said, but if anyone thinks otherwise or wants any changes, of course, that's why it's back on the agenda.
I have 2 small text changes to suggest.
Okay.
See? Okay, so under the second bullet that begins, we need to review high school graduation requirements, on line 6, it says the skill set needed to navigate anything that comes. I felt that was too broad, and I would suggest a change to something like the adult world, something of that nature.
Any skill set needed to navigate the adult world?
Please, recommend something better.
I'm just wondering if the adult world sufficiently covers what's out there, including Washington, D.C. right now.
Yeah, this is actually quoting one of our students. So, Navin, do you want to suggest a reword for that?
Sure. I think a sufficient and, in my opinion, comprehensive term would be their future, whatever that may be.
Navigate their future.
I like that.
Perfect. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, my second small change is in bullet number 4 on the second line. It says,
there we go.
Bullet 4, yeah, we must create and ensure the implementation. On the second line, it says, in the case of physical emergencies. I wanted to be a little bit more precise there because, when a kid falls from the play structure and breaks their arm, it is an emergency, but it's not one that we need to deal with in this sense. I felt like large-scale emergencies or, something a bit more precise regarding the scale of the emergency that we need to have this protocol for. The schools are doing fine on small-scale issues.
Do you want to say large-scale physical emergencies or large-scale emergencies?
Large-scale emergencies. It doesn't necessarily have to be physical.
Okay. Anything else?
No, other than that, I thought it was a really great document and statement of direction.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, I want to say something about the third bullet point where it talks about the budget, and I just want to clear something up about last time we had a meeting. You had brought up something about it being a possible violation of the Brown Act, and I just want to make clear what your understanding of the Brown Act is. Is the Brown Act law, Mr. Black?
Yes.
It is law.
Yes.
All right, well, I'm just putting you on notice. You might want to be more careful about accusing another board member of breaking the law, because that's basically what you did 2 weeks ago, and I've been very upset about it. So I'm putting you on notice right now. If you're going to ever try to accuse me of breaking the law again, you better have some evidence. I'm serious.
Okay, understood. Okay, anything else?
Just a quick note for the first bullet point. I've talked to a couple students about the idea of a more condensed and simplified version of the board's activities via different methods of communication, and they're very receptive towards this. So I think we're going to have a very excited and very receptive audience. So awesome.
Great, thank you. Okay. Anything else? Any comments from the audience? Can you ask Charlie, since he missed that meeting, he might have comments on this?
1 second. Charlie, do you have any comments on board goals?
Yeah, okay. I'm happy with what I see here. Thank you, Paul, for pulling that together. My comment is this is a very comprehensive list. It's a great list. I'm happy to support it. It's a lot, and If we can accomplish this, it will be very impressive.
Thanks, Charlie. Okay, so this is on here as an action item for approval as district goals for the year. So do we have a motion
I move that we approve the district goals
with the changes?
with the small changes we just discussed.
Okay, do we have a second?
I second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, independent contractor agreement with ProCare Therapy Incorporated.
Thank you, President Black. Trustees, I'm going to turn this over to Marie Williams, who will discuss this agenda item.
Good evening. This item is coming before you because we are in need of a district nurse. We retained a nurse last year who has since resigned, and despite our best efforts to recruit and retain a nurse, we weren't able to do so. In the meantime, we do have several functions that we need a district nurse to provide. So examples would include writing and monitoring health care plans for students. We also have required vision and hearing screening that has to occur throughout the school year. There also are some requirements around training for staff that this year we have tried to make do with instructional videos and pulling resources that the previous district nurse left behind. There also are requirements for monitoring and also reporting on immunizations. I did provide kind of the full scope of duties. We would retain the services of the district nurse in this capacity just for this year, and our intent would be that in the following school year, we would again begin a recruitment process to hire a permanent district nurse.
Have any questions or comments?
Just one. When you talk about trying to hire a district nurse next year, would that be a full-time position or a 0.6?
Good question. The district nurse position is currently a 0.6 position, and so we would seek to fill it as a 0.6 position. Yes, thank you for clarifying.
Any other questions, comments? Audience? Do we have a motion?
Fine. I'll move that we approve the independent contract agreement with ProCare Therapy.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Now we have review and discussion items. We're not voting on these tonight. First is a new management salary schedule.
Thank you, President Black. Trustees, at the last board meeting, board gave direction to staff to bring this as a review and discussion item. And so the purpose of this agenda item is for the Board of Education to review and discuss the AUSD salary schedule for certificated and classified management employees. The Certificate and Classified Management Employee team is requesting that the Board of Education approve a revised salary schedule which would provide access to district-paid health care benefits. The new salary schedule would be effective July 1, 2018, with access to district-paid health care benefits effective January 1, 2018.
Okay, so comments and questions.
So is somebody going to sort of walk through this?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so what, excuse me, pardon me. Okay. So one of the conversations that was had was to have this management salary schedule be revenue neutral, cost neutral. And so what the management team did was they came together and they presented a proposal that does have a cost of, in the 17-18 school year, $35,138. In the 18-19 school year, cost of $5,887. Savings in the 2019-20 school year of $12,639. and in the 2021 school year, cost of $2,076. So what management group did was, in wanting to have the same benefits as the other bargaining units, the bargaining units, the management group got together and they worked out a salary schedule where they would roll back, or Alan's going to help me out here with the exact terminology, the agreement in the 2016-17 school year for the 1.25% raise, that they would give that back, and then try to come up with a salary schedule that was as cost neutral as possible. What this would do is that there would be a salary freeze, and some members of the management team would actually see a decrease in their salary. So their goal was to not only have the same district paid benefits, but that they were willing to make this as cost neutral as possible. And on the attachment, if you can scroll up to there. So there is the proposed salary schedule, and underneath that is the current salary schedule. So you can see the difference.
Just to back up, this issue relates to the fact that whereas teachers and others are receiving district health benefits in addition to salary, or as a part of a complete package, the management team has been getting paid and having to pay out of their own pocket for their health coverage. So the proposal was, and this was something that happened, when did it happen?
Back in 2000, it's been over 10 years ago, so 2006-07.
So over 10 years ago, during the prevailing conditions, when it made it apparently advantageous to do so, management arranged to get salaries that way. Increased salaries, paying for health care out of their own pocket. The proposal here is to change it so that, like the teachers, management is getting benefits provided by the district and a reduced salary. And there's various arguments, and we'll hear some of them.
Hi, I'm Patty Fujiwara, co-president of ATA. I just wanted to provide a little more background information about what happened about 10 years ago with the change in benefits for the certificated management. They got a significant increase in salary to pay for their health care. And what that does in the long run is give them a much better retirement plan than we have as teachers. And a decision was made back in 2004, I believe, to do that. So there were definitely some financial advantages to do that because they were getting paid more in their salary. That was included in their salary, which is not allowed right now. It's not, you can't spike salaries like that. So there is some backstory to this as to what happened, back in 2004.
And of the people who were here in 2004, how many are here in 2017?
I don't think that's really relevant. I'm just saying what the history of this was, okay? And that there are people, they will have an advantage over the teachers because their salary is much higher than our salary as far as retirement goes. But I'm not saying that it was what they did back then. I don't know. They didn't look ahead to see what might happen with healthcare. I think teachers did realize that we needed to really look at how healthcare costs might go up, and so we did not choose to go that route. But all I'm saying is that regardless, there is an advantage to their salary as far as it relates to their retirement, which we don't have as teachers.
But under this new schedule, if their salary is reduced, that will penalize them in terms of future retirement benefits, yes?
When I was looking at the salary schedule, it seems at the lower end the salary is lower, but at the higher end there's really not that much difference in salary. So if I went over to like column F or something like that, it seems like there's not that big of a difference there. And what we're just saying is we would like something that's equitable for all of us. Okay, an equitable solution to this. And I applaud them for making this, deciding that, some people would lose some salary, but at the top end, there's not really that much of a difference. So I just want to make sure that this is an equitable arrangement for all of our employees here in the district. Thank you.
Thanks. Jacob?
Yeah, if Alan could clarify on the top of the page right there, I know what it's saying, but I want to make sure everybody else does. The A, B, C, D, E, and F. Can you clarify what that is?
Sure. So A, B, C, D, and F, those are the steps to the salary schedule. So for school districts, there's a published salary schedule that gets approved by the school board. As an employee enters the position, they begin at a certain step, and for each year of experience in that position, they gain and they move up an additional step.
All right, thank you. Yeah, if you could go to the next page, please, that has the other two schedules. Okay, so my understanding was back when this deal was made that supposedly was a mistake and we're trying to rectify it now. When they gave up their benefits, I was told that the pay that went on their salary when they gave the benefits up was $18,000. Is that in the ballpark?
The amount that was included was, let's see. There was an amount that was included, and so the current is about $18,000. That, as far as the worth of the access to benefits. So, when the agreement was first made over 10 years ago, it was not $18,000 that increased all the salaries, but the benefits package that was the access to benefits package that was lost due to the agreement is currently worth $18,000.
All right, because I thought I was told it was originally $18,000, and while it was going up each year until they stopped it, it reached its way up to $21,000. So now you're telling me something different.
I'll need to confirm.
Okay, well, we'll just use the $18,000 then, right? So take the F on top, which is your proposal, and drop it down to the range 14, and come over, it's $200,291. Look at what it is currently. Go down to range 14, go over $202,795. So whoever that person is offering to give back $500 for an $18,000 benefit, and that's cost neutral somehow?
So this is for the entire group, and
that's one person. That's not in the group when you're talking about 14.
Correct. But
right, and when you bargain too, usually as a unit, you don't bargain for each individual employee. You bargain as the unit. Some people get a benefit, and some people take one for the team. So this individually bargaining for each individual person is not how bargaining is done. And with that example, to give up $500 for an $18,000 benefit and then try to call that cost neutral, we can discuss this more because it's not working with me.
So the way the package was developed was when we did a comparison of the rankings for our school districts in the area, we noticed that Albany was very competitive in the beginning and then lost ground towards the end. So that's why column F is very similar for the current salary schedule compared to the proposal, so that we can be competitive throughout the entire salary schedule.
That's not what I asked, as far as it being only a $500 difference. You can take, minus the pool director and the aquatics director, those stay the same because I guess they come from somewhere else. We're talking giving back anywhere from $500 to $2,000 in exchange for a $21,000.
So with salary schedules, it's not tied to the specific person who is in the position. It's only tied to the position. So if any one of these employees leaves, then the new person would begin at a lower salary schedule. So for instance, for the range 14, the current the person would begin at step A, making $158,000, and with the new salary schedule, they would begin making $145,000. So they would lose just shy of $14,000.
Can we hear from David for a minute?
Hi, my name is David, and I'm the vice principal at Albany Middle School. I wanted to come up now. I was listening to what you heard, but Board Member Clark, I just wanted to provide a little context, if I can. That I just want to say that I stand before you all tonight to voice the unified support of the management team for this proposal. I think the board's really well aware that we have worked as a unified team over the past 5 months to present a proposal that we can all stand behind, and we think that this is that proposal. We recognize that everyone will be sacrificing something, and for some it might be less than others. But nonetheless, we stand behind this unified, and we are presenting this proposal not for individuals, but for the group, and to fix the inequity that exists within our group and within the other employee groups. And we, as I said, some will take pay freezes, others will see a pay cut, and we nonetheless stand unified behind this proposal and are committed to securing equity of access to health care for our team, and that we ask that the board and district stand behind past declarations of support for the management team and our pursuit of district-sponsored health care. And we ask that the board and district value our school and district leaders with this health care.
So you brought that up before in an email. When did the board do a declaration where we supported to give you guys?
Board Member Trutain support, there was a quote in the minutes
it. No.
That she said she was committed to working with the management team on providing district-paid health care.
Committed to working and to talk about it is different than making a declaration to give you health benefits.
And we are attempting to work. You know, our initial proposal was much different than this. We didn't give up anything for that. We just asked for health care benefits, and so we're attempting to work with the board on that.
Right, but I watched a YouTube meeting a while back where Charles Blanchard said we were committed to talking about it, and then you sent an email to the board saying, don't forget that you committed to do this. So it needs to be clear the way that you're addressing.
And I was looking back at the quote directly from Board Member Trutain.
So that meant the whole board was.
She is
when you're bargaining,
a member of the. I'm not allowed to bargain here.
You are.
Clearly understand.
You are.
I'm allowed to voice my support.
You are, but you are bargaining. You realize that, right?
I'm merely voicing a support of declaration of support for this proposal.
Okay. Yeah, I was still discussing this with Alan. So he's going to use if we can go back to the page with the A and the A through F and all the different numbers up there.
This one or the next one?
So I'm a teacher in San Leandro, and we bargain, right, with the school district. And it's just odd that the staff is bargaining for some employees opposed to against them. That's what I've always seen. So you're taking the example and you're trying to go over to A and go, oh, that's the most generous give back. I'm jumping over to the other side and going to F. That's showing it's basically we just want benefits, but we don't want to take any pay away from it. And I talked about this. If you guys wanted to bargain, then this is how bargaining is done. You know, you can spin it and take the left side. I'll take the right side, and it's probably somewhere down the middle. And it's not cost effective if overall the $18,000 that they got is not being put back on the table, right? I brought this up months ago. This could have been done. It was supposed to have been a mistake that was made. I said, let's go back, fix it. Whatever amount of money they got, have them give it back and give them their benefits, and then we can move on. But instead, we wanted to get into all this individualized thing that teachers aren't allowed to do that. Teachers took their deal. Some people lost the Blue Shield or whatever it was. Some people took big cuts. I mean, even the numbers as far as you use the 3-year thing to show that eventually it's going to save us money. Not if somebody leaves who, you like to say, well, some people aren't taking those benefits, right? Well, once we lock into something, we're locked into it. So then if somebody leaves and all the new people come in, and then all of a sudden they take the benefit package, those calculations that you have put out there are not, there's no meaning to them. This is not a cost-neutral deal, in my opinion.
Kim?
Yeah, Alan, I heard the question come up about the amount that was added into the salaries 10 years ago, and then I know that it was annually updated for a while, I think until 2012, around there. Yeah, and is it possible to retrieve that exact number? I think that would be useful, I think, because it went up the amount that healthcare went up. It didn't go up in terms of a % of the salary. Correct. Okay. It would be nice to sort of sunshine that number. Yeah.
Do you like that number year by year? Only because
no, just the
board, I need to make sure
cumulative.
Thank you.
Cumulative number.
Are you representing the board or are you representing management? Because I'm still having a hard time figuring out.
I'm representing the board, but since I will be talking to management, I want to make sure that the direction is very clear, that the direction that is being asked is that funding was placed on the salary schedule and that additional money was added over several years, and you would like that cumulative.
And just for clarification for the public, Superintendent Williams is not included in this agreement. She has a separate contract with the board, so she's representing the board in talking to management.
And I've made that very clear to management that I am an agent of the school board.
That's what you've said, but...
Yes, and I've made it very clear to the team that is conferring with me that I don't give them any opinion on their side, that I am here as the agent of the board. And I give the board's direction, and I was very clear about it being cost neutral.
Okay.
Ross?
A question to Alan. It sounded like you were saying that the way those numbers are raised in the table addresses two things. One, the fact that health care, if we provide it as a benefit in addition to salary, but then the other is to address the issue of, well, we pay people less at the higher end than other districts. Is that the case?
Both are addressed through this new proposal.
Okay, but that means we're addressing two issues. We initially absolutely are willing to entertain the loss due to, and absolutely I anticipate, until we get universal, health care is likely to increase faster than the cost of living. I'm absolutely sympathetic to the idea of reining in the inequity that grows every year due to the cost of health care. It's an entirely separate issue if we are uncompetitive on our management schedule, and that's a whole nother story. I mean, that requires a whole different look. You could probably go and solve I have to pay it out of pocket, I'd rather not. And I'd be willing on the board to absolutely bite the bullet and say, well, every year management will end up paying more because we're going to match them on health care. That's something that I'm willing to say, that'd be fair. It's fair to see teacher salaries rise with the amount we have to pay more for health care. It's fair to see management salaries rise ditto because we're paying for the health care. But it's a whole other question to say, well, we have an uncompetitive management schedule, let's change that. I'd like to see the numbers of other management schedules in the area. I'd like to understand cost of living issues and all that. They are somewhat separable, and it feels like we've kind of come in to address the question of apples, and now we're seeing apples and oranges.
At this point, see if Charlie has any comments, because it's getting pretty late where he is.
Charlie, did you have any comments?
I do, thank you.
Charlie, hold on a second. Hold on. Okay, try again. Well, for some reason, my speaker's not. Okay, go ahead.
All right, let's try that again. So I'm still listening to Ross, but I think I'm able to build on what Ross was saying, and also I wanted to build on Patty Fujiwara's comments that I think we need to get to something which is equitable for everybody. That's a good goal. I'd like to offer one thought which I haven't heard expressed right now, and that is if we look at column A of the proposed certificated management salary schedule, and if we take into consideration the number of work days per year, that then brings column A almost into alignment with the maximum ATA salary. So it's very close. So for the high school assistant principal, it's about 5% less than the maximum ATA salary. For the high school principal, it's about 6% more. So basically what we're looking at here is a proposed salary schedule for principals and other management, which pretty much starts at the top end of the ATA salary schedule. I think we could talk about it in those terms. We could talk about what's the right place for that salary schedule to be starting. To me, it ought to be pretty close because most of our principals and management team have a lot of years of experience, so they would normally be near the top end of the teacher's salary schedule. And I think if we're going to attract and retain qualified administrators, then we need to be somewhere near that point in the starting salaries. Beyond that, if we look at the range that's been offered, there's only about a 45% gain from column A to column F plus the maximum longevity. So maybe it would be more productive just to talk about whether those are competitive salaries, whether it's the right place to be starting. It seems very difficult to try to parse out what happened 10, 15 years ago, what's been happening since then, and what might happen over the next 5 years. So that was what I'd like to offer as a comment.
Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie. Anyone else? Anyone in the audience want to weigh in on this? Okay, so I'm not sure if anything has been resolved at this point. This is not an action item tonight, but it does need to be brought back as an action item at some point. So what would the board like to see when it's brought back as an action item? Do you want to vote on this proposal? Do you want some specific changes in the proposal before you vote on it?
I propose that whatever the number is in 2014, because I've heard a mistake was made, go back and fix that mistake and put their benefits back into their package, and what they received, they give back. Somebody was up here last time saying, oh, us as management, we don't have any health care to give back. We have nothing to give back. You have your pay to give back that you got in 2004. So to stand up there and say you don't have anything to give back as far as health care because you guys, not you individually, but as a unit, gave up your health care for a certain amount of money. Put that money back, and then you get your benefits back. Done deal. So that's what I propose.
Okay. Ross?
Well, as I've said, we're kind of juggling two things simultaneously. One is a desire to not see further erosion. I mean, the chief benefit of folding the healthcare in is like with the teachers. Then ever after, a cost of living kind of comes free because we're covering healthcare. Whether or not we have a competitive pay schedule is a whole other thing, and I haven't heard enough discussion about if that's so and how to best address that.
Good. Go ahead.
Just to speak to that, Board Member Gray, I forget what the exact date of the board meeting was, but we did provide a ranking scale in terms of the administrator pay scale that was initially proposed that wasn't this proposal. So I think it would be relatively easy for us to update that proposal just by adjusting our current proposal and then readjusting the rankings. I don't remember if that was at the first August or the 2nd August board meeting.
And then related to that, I would like to see, I guess, then a kind of a, in the science world, you do Monte Carlo simulations of people retiring or not, et cetera, and imagining what the budget will look like X number of years out. It's I think someone raised the point, it's kind of unrealistic to expect the numbers to stay stable when there will be incentives to do this or that or the other. When we got Prop 13, it incented an awful lot of people to expand their houses and keep their low tax bases. So when this is possible, it will be different for people in terms of assuming jobs or assuming health care or shifting to their spouse's care or shifting their spouse to their care. So better projections of what we're actually likely to see would be helpful.
Anyone else want to weigh in on this? Does Charlie have anything else to say?
Charlie, do you have anything else you'd like to say or any direction?
No, actually, I'm still listening to David's comments, so I may still be a couple minutes behind you. I don't have anything else to add.
Okay, so it sounds like we have two different suggestions for ways to modify the schedule. Is that right? One from Ross and one from Jacob, or do you?
I think I hear a very clear one from Jacob. Give the money back from the 2004 and get benefits back. That was pretty clear. I wasn't quite sure what your direction was, Ross.
I guess my recommendation would be consider a range of scenarios and sort of explain and justify each. The teachers have strong opinions, management has strong opinions, there will be alternatives, and there's some fundamental issues under this, like the creeping cost of health care. I absolutely feel for management seeing increase in costs rising faster than cost of living. That's a problem, and I understand that. Does it mean we need to go back and rebuild the pay structure because we've also grown anti-competitive because of it? I don't know if winding everything back to 2004 and winding it forward again with a different model works. I'd love to see those numbers. I think we're up for another round of discussion, really. I don't expect to see something come back to vote.
Okay, Alexia?
And I ask for that number, for Alan to build that number and make it public.
Yes, thank you. That was the additional money added over several years cumulative, correct?
Yes.
Alexia?
Hi, thank you for your time tonight. Alexia Ritchie, the principal of Albany High School. And I do want to reiterate that the management team has worked very hard, and we're not represented. We are bargaining in public, and so that's something that we have to acknowledge. The idea that we would be taking a pay cut for the good of the team, again, should be reiterated. I'll tell you my own personal experience, which is I would not receive a benefits package if I were to be under this new salary schedule. In fact, if you do decide to roll back the percentage that was added to the salary, I literally cannot afford to live or work in this district any longer. And there are a number of us who will not be taking the benefits package, including myself. So we will only be taking a pay cut if this happens. Again, I'll reiterate, a lot of us are not going to be benefiting from this particular proposal. We are willing, though, to take one for the team because we do know it provides equitable access to health care.
Thanks. I'm Ben Hensler. I'm on the PTA board at Ocean View School. I also have a daughter at the middle school. And from my point of view, what makes our schools great is the longevity and the experience and the talent of both the teachers and the administrators. And to create a situation where people are facing a choice between a significant salary cut or be able to get health insurance is not something that makes the district an attractive place for for administrators to say it's the same reason why I expect that teachers wouldn't find the same thing attractive. And so I would really support a program, a outcome that's equitable, that has people both having health insurance but not having significant salary cuts in order to get that. I'm not deeply versed in the labor relations of this district. I'm a parent, but I do know something about labor relations. I've been a union shop steward, and I'm currently a management representative in collective bargaining for my organization. I know from both sides of the table, anytime you have people working side by side in the same workplace where people have a significantly different benefits package, it breeds dissension and it breeds demoralization. And it's not something that I don't know the history of how we got here, but if there's a way to solve it so that it doesn't happen going forward, I think it would be an improvement and would create a more sustainable future in terms of the ability to retain and attract top-notch administration. So I hope that the proposal is given serious consideration and that we can end up with an outcome where people can keep both their salaries and have access to health care. Thank you.
Thank you. Jacob?
So I appreciate what the speakers are saying, and as far as the previous speaker before him saying that it would be a big cut for her, I get that, and she was saying as far as some of the team members would take a cut and some would get an increase. Well, by trying to do something this big, that is what it's opening up. I mean, for the years past, I don't know if it's in policy or whatever, but most school districts have a Me Too clause. And as far as I know, the management has been okay with the Me Too clause for many, many years. And then all of a sudden this year, I was surprised this whole thing came up. All of a sudden the Me Too clause wasn't enough anymore. And then I was sympathetic to we want the benefits, and as I found out more about it, I said, well, how did this happen? Go back and change it. Now, I know it's not as easy just to say go back and change it because things have happened since then, but I mean, we've spent months and months on it, and now it's sounding like, oh, how long are we going to keep discussing this? You know, we have budget cuts that are coming up that are huge, and I'm still not getting the concept of saying that it's a team deal kind of with teachers or whatever. This is what is going to happen, and it happens to everybody across the board in every cell, and this is individualized. So yeah, you can say it's hitting people different ways, but the whole calculation and all that is not a set unit. And someone had said well, that's how bargaining works, unless we're going to spend months and months and months I want people to have benefits too, and unfortunately, none of you in the room, but they gave it up before. And it happens all the time. I mean, so I want to make a solution that works, but to say for a particular person, well, this is what would happen to me, right? Well, once we sign this deal and give all the benefits back, it's there for 20, 30 years. So you got to look at that too. To say right now, well, only so many people are going to take the benefits and so many people aren't, and some people are at the lower end, some people are at the higher end. That's true. But when we're going to make a big change to this with huge ramifications with opening it up, that has to be calculated in the numbers. As far as what it's going to cost, and some of these numbers are based on assumptions that you can't know for sure. So I made a motion a while back, so I don't know if
what?
I made a motion a while back about.
You made a suggestion for for them to modify it?
I thought I made a motion. As far as what we were going to do next time, I said bring it back as far as. Well, she was the one who's. when Ross said something, I said bring it back with them giving back the amount they got. And then all this side talk happened. So is that motion not?
There were two directions that I was given that I gave to the management team. One was that.
But I'm making a motion to the board for
sorry.
us next time when we come back for review and action.
Okay, I'm sorry, I thought you asked what the two things were that.
Okay, so you would like the board to weigh in on whether they want to do that or something else?
That's what I thought I was doing when I asked
Okay,
to make a motion.
Fine. So since this is not a review and action item, I wasn't expecting a motion, but you're asking the board to give direction to staff to tell management that that's what you want them to bring back, just to cut that 18,000 off.
Or whatever the number is. I heard it was more. So that's a number that Kim's asking for too. I mean.
Okay. Does anyone else want to weigh in on the suggestion? Kim, you're looking confused. Are you?
Well, I'm a little bit confused. Okay, one thing I want to, I'd like some clarity on is I understand that the proposed table was created by taking certain steps and applying them to all of the cells. So let me know if I'm wrong there. What I heard Val say as she was doing the walkthrough is there was a declining the 1.25 increase for this school year, for 2017-18. And then there was a rollback of 1.25% that was, so that was from 2016-17. So that would be taken away also. And then that the salaries would be frozen for 2018-19. And that, so I thought that all of those steps were applied to the entire table uniformly. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, so everybody's salary is getting treated equally to those conditions?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, that's good to know. I'm interested in seeing the number that you're going to build about how much was actually put into the schedules, and I'm also interested in what Ross was talking about. You know, thinking a little bit about the implications of how a changeover in employees. You know, what sort of like what the worst case scenario would be, and what that could do to district finances. So I'd like to see those things come back. And I would like to reiterate, I think that it's very important what, I think it was Ben came up and said that, you know, when you have two groups working closely together that have disparate benefit packages, it makes things difficult. And I also think that in order to compare apples to apples, we need to have everybody on the same benefits package. And I do feel that that is a goal that I'm committed to and want to work toward.
Okay. Okay. My personal feeling is I'm interested in this proposal being as cost neutral as possible. And beyond that, I don't have a real interest in how that's done. I think we have two directions. One is Jacob's approach, which is very straightforward. And we could certainly bring back that a schedule, and then we could, if management wanted to make any adjustments based around the conversation there tonight, to the salary schedule that they proposed tonight, but one that they're happier with, they could bring that back. We could have two different salary schedules to look at and either accept one of them or reject them both. But we'd have something to work from. Is that okay with the board?
It's okay by me.
Jacob, would that be all right?
I mean, it sounds like the one that I proposed is one of them, so yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Ross?
I'm prepared to see new proposals with the thought that we may at the next meeting say, wow, we still need to know more. I wouldn't anticipate that the next time we're seeing something is pick A or B or neither, end discussion.
Okay, so you don't want to vote on it next time? Because Jacob expressed the opinion that we've been going on this too long and we should be making a decision. And I tend to agree with him on that. So,
well, that could be the route we go. It's at the risk of me saying.
You could move to table it, sure. Of course. Charlie, is he still there?
Charlie, do you have any additional thoughts or comments?
I just heard Paul say, bring back 2 salary schedules next time. Is that okay with the board? So that's okay with me. And you may have already gone past that question, but that's my answer to his question.
Okay, good. So I think we have direction to staff. Okay, thank you. Terry?
Hi, my name's Terry Georgeson. I'm principal at Ocean View. I've been a principal at Ocean View for 10 years, and I taught in Albany for over 16 years, and was assistant principal at Albany High School for 4 years. Taught at Albany Middle School. I have a long history in this district, and I appreciate any opportunity to recognize that not only are teachers valued in this district, but as a former teacher in this district, I hear every single day the value in experience, knowledge, and the understanding of what our community is. Honestly, to ask my team members to give up $18,000 off their paycheck off the top just seems inhumane in the sense of trying to come to an understanding. I want to make a couple other clarifications. You mentioned that we refused to take the Me Too. It wasn't us refusing it. We haven't brought this up. We haven't stood in front of a board in my entire 26 years asking for anything as a membership team. This is the first time we've ever done that. And the reason we came forward is because an ex-board member who was part of the process remembered the fact that we received additional monies to cover the cost of our health benefits as health benefits went up. Not only would I love to see what those numbers are, but I sure would love to see the numbers of how much health benefits have gone up since those have not been paid in 2012. Each year I take a pay cut. My colleagues across the hall and with teachers have benefits that I wonder whether I can continue to afford. This problem won't go away, and asking us to take 18, 20, 16, whatever it is, in a pay cut just seems absurd. Come to an understanding of asking for revenue neutral. We got within $40,000 over a 5-year plan. Pretty close to what we're doing without asking people to make significant cuts. If you want to have us all look the same, then make us all work the same number of days. Teachers work a contract that's very similar within their days for their contract. If you look at the days up here, we work different days. We have different responsibilities. Trying to compare us to a contract that is negotiated through teams over months, maybe even years, while we have to stand in front of a board to ask for some equity and parity, I never thought I'd be here. I really hope you guys can take care of this as opposed to asking us to take such significant cuts so that you don't have to look at a high cost of what we make.
Thanks, Terry. Okay, so staff has direction on this item.
I would like to respond because that seemed like that was directed right at me.
Okay.
You know? So I'm inhumane now because I was told that there was a mistake that was made back in 2004. And with everything that's been going on with our district, with what happened recently and the budget cuts coming up, I'm humane to say let's go back and just fix the mistake that was made. All right.
The one final piece I just wanted to add is I haven't been in the district very long. When the Me Too was brought, it was, I think, in June, and it was the 2.5%, whereas the teachers had a 5%, and that was the first time. My understanding that we had seen a difference in the Me Too clause between the teachers and the management team, and that 2.5% was tabled by the board. And it was kind of from that led us to talk about what do we need as a team for equity, and we need health care. And it's really scary. I know Terry's scared. I'm scared. We all have our individual stories, and that's why we're asking for this. We weren't given the Me Too. The Me Too was at half the rate that the teachers were given, and the teachers deserve that. Don't let me get me wrong. My teachers are phenomenal. The teachers of this district are what drive this. But we need strong school leadership, and we need equity in our access to health care so that we can have stability. And so that as we watch healthcare costs rise, we don't have to make a decision of whether or not we can stay here or whether or not we have to leave.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Liz Reimuller, assistant principal.
You get the final word, then we have to move on.
Okay, if it's not time, it's okay. Assistant principal at Albany High School, and I've never been so scared to speak to the board before, but I'm going to do it. I'm the most junior administrator, and I knew I knew that the benefits were not included when I accepted the job, and I'm proud to have the job, and I wouldn't turn it back. It's a great job, but I've always stood throughout my entire life and my career for equity of medical care, and I can't not stand for that as an administrator. I have to stand for the same conviction that I have, that we deserve the right. We're the only group in the whole district that doesn't have medical care, and that seems ludicrous. And when I was told that many years ago by a Marin School principal many years ago, she said we pay for our own benefits. And I actually thought that was across the state. I thought that was the case across the state. I did not understand that it was unique to Albany, and that's pretty sad. So I think it's the next part was that we asked for benefits, and I was completely new, and then that was not granted, which I understand that, because that would be a big increase. But we were asked to make it cost neutral, and what we did was, as I understand it, present 2 salary schedules, and we have people here willing to take pay cuts, and for me, who's at the bottom of that, be willing to freeze our salary for 5 years. Mine would be frozen until it caught up to what an incoming person would have. So we are willing to make sacrifices. We are willing to make the cuts. We're saying we will do that, and we were asked to do it. And we as I understand it, we came to you with something that doesn't cost the district as much as giving us all the benefits. But we do deserve health care, and I still stand by that. Thank you.
Thanks, Liz. Okay, so this will be back on the agenda. So let's move on to the next item, which is a first reading of a adoption of a comprehensive health and sexuality course and instructional materials for Albany Middle School.
Thank you. I'm going to turn this over to Marie Williams, who will address this agenda item.
Hello again. This item is coming before you tonight as review and discussion. This item previously was agendized for a meeting in May, and due to other pressing matters on the board agenda, we didn't have an opportunity to discuss this item. So essentially, there are 2 things happening in this board item. there is curriculum coming before you that would be implemented at our middle school, at the 7th grade specifically, to meet the requirements of the California Healthy Youth Act. The board backup document does provide some information about the requirements of the California Healthy Youth Act, which is California Assembly Bill 329. The purpose of implementing this new legislation is to provide pupils with the knowledge and skills necessary to protect their sexual and reproductive health from HIV and other sexually transmitted infections and from unintended pregnancy, to provide pupils with the knowledge and skills they need to develop healthy attitudes concerning adolescent growth and development, body image, gender, sexual orientation, relationships, marriage, and family, promoting an understanding of sexuality as a normal part of human development, ensuring pupils receive integrated, comprehensive, accurate, and unbiased sexual health and HIV prevention instruction, and provide educators with clear tools and guidance to accomplish that end, and also to provide pupils with the knowledge and skills necessary to have healthy, positive, and safe relationships and behaviors. So the curriculum that meets the requirements of the California Healthy Youth Act were piloted previously at Albany Middle School through a very complicated push-in process. So we last year had a Safe Schools coordinator who also, as part of her duty, provided this curriculum. And that model involved going into different content area classes to deliver this material. Because of the constraints of a master schedule, it was not possible to simply add another period in the day to accomplish this curriculum. So there has been quite a lot of strategizing, I would say, on the part of the principal. Ms. Brill is here this evening to help in the presentation of this item. Welcome and thank you. And so that curriculum was piloted last year, was presented to students last year, with the intention that in May, the curriculum would be approved for use by the governing board, and then we would move forward this year. That didn't happen, but we do still have a requirement to comply with the requirements of the law. So this year, students are receiving the California Healthy Youth Act curriculum in some creative ways, I will say. For some students who are enrolled in a 5th period health wheel, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, they are exposed to the curriculum as a component of that health wheel. For other students not in that particular period of the wheel, they are receiving the material that's required as part of the California Healthy Youth Act, but a shortened, they're receiving the curriculum. There are some students in band that are being pulled out to receive the curriculum. And we also did have just a small number of students that we couldn't accommodate in a classroom setting because they weren't in any of the classes that we were pushing into. And so there also right now is offered an independent study module for 3rd quarter. So we are trying always possible to implement the requirements of the California Healthy Youth Act. So that's one component of it. The other component is the health-related topic. So if you look down in the appendix, it's not going to go to the right page. Thank you, Ellen, for helping with that. The other component of this item is curriculum and instructional materials that cover health curriculum, correct? That cover health curriculum. So for the students that are in the 5th period health wheel, they receive California Healthy Youth Act, and they also receive health-related topics as part of that wheel. The other students not in that 5th period health wheel receive only the California Healthy Youth Act curriculum. There are standards for health. Not all schools and districts implement a health curriculum. There was an opportunity to provide some health curriculum here, and so we're offering that through the health wheel. So you're getting a lot of information this evening, essentially kind of covering 2 topics. One is the material covered in the entirety of that 5th period health wheel, and the other is the material specific to complying with the requirements of the California Healthy Youth Act And at this time, I'm going to ask Ms. Brill if there's anything you wanted to add before we provide an opportunity for questions or clarifications by the board or community.
Vin?
You covered it beautifully. I think the only thing that I would just add is that our health teacher had received some hourly money over not this past summer, but the summer before to work through a lot of the curriculum that existed and to pull from different curriculum to make it fit the amount of time we had, and I think did a pretty outstanding and thorough job doing that. And then last year, the pilot was really helpful to kind of see how, in actuality, how much time do these different topics take. And so we really have it dialed in for this this time round. And the comprehensive sexual education as part of the California Healthy Youth Act is 15 days of instruction. Then that's what we're making sure that every 7th grader receives. And then the additional health topics for the 5th period wheel that Ms. Williams explained.
Navin?
Sure. So I was looking over the packet, and I noticed that it talked about the change in consent from active consent to passive consent. I'd just like to discuss that because while I feel that a complete and thorough sexual education is paramount to the safety and health of a student population, sexual education is one of those things where a lot of parents feel like they want to discuss certain parts with their kids or certain issues, and I think that we should revert this to I think that we should discuss the idea of reverting this back to a active consent system. That way parents are prompted to look over the entirety of the program and, choose whether they want to do that rather than, not really look over this and then have any kind of regret or some sort of issue later on.
Yeah, that's a good question. And so there are two things I would say about that. One is that there's a requirement in the language of the legislation that says at the beginning of the school year, we are required to provide information to parents about California Healthy Youth Act curriculum. And so this year we did that through our data confirmation process. And so that information was provided to all families so that there won't be, hopefully, if every family did their data confirmation, there won't be families who were unaware that this curriculum was coming. The other piece I would say is that I'm certain it's our practice, and I know it's part of the legislation, that the materials are available for families to review. So in the event that there is a portion of that curriculum that they would rather deliver another way, or personally, that can happen. I think kind of one of the challenges potentially of the active consent is with anything that comes home that requires consent, sometimes it's difficult to get that consent back. I know I'm guilty of not turning in a couple things that have already been requested of me several times, and I work here in the district and in student services, no less. And so I think kind of one of the challenges potentially is families, for whatever reason, not returning that form, not necessarily because they don't agree, but not returning that form and then are not being able to deliver the curriculum as required by law. But I certainly appreciate your raising that consideration around working in partnership with families so that they can make appropriate choices for themselves.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your answer.
Yeah.
Thanks. Anyone else? Russ?
I'd just like to say, with everything else going on in the world and in our budget and everything else, it's a joy to live in a rather enlightened state among a rather educated populace, so that we're not fighting over whether or not we dare teach people about, when the earth might have been formed or how people interact. I'm really glad we can adopt a reasonable set of curricula from the state and not fight that fight too.
I have a 7th grader who has 5th period wheel, and I believe he's received this curriculum during this first quarter. And I've been very impressed. He has been able to participate in conversations at dinner based on his increased knowledge, and I feel that it has been delivered in a sensitive and mature an informed way. So I've seen this curriculum at work, and I'm happy to accept it.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Do we want to bring this back on consent or review and action?
I would be happy to bring it back on consent, is my opinion.
Need a second? Does it need a second?
No.
Okay.
We'll bring this back on consent at the next board meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, and appointment of a district board policy committee.
And since Maria's standing up there, this is the last agenda item for her to address.
Thank you. So this item is coming before you, and I think both the board and district staff are I hope in support of establishing a board policy committee to undertake the arduous task of not only revising board policy, but also setting up some systems for ongoing monitoring of those board policies. I did make one slight but crucial omission in the board backup, and that was in describing the composition of the committee. And so the committee would be composed of parents and staff, and also board members would be included on that committee, site staff and district staff. And so just in my year of being here, and tomorrow will be 1 year, but not quite to the day, there have been times that board policies have come forward, and then we've been unable, because of the constraints of time, to have the discussion around those board policy items. And while certainly we act in compliance with the law, whether that be state or federal, I think it's really important that our philosophies, our practices, procedures are codified in updated board policies so that parents and the community can use our board policy as a resource. I know that for me, any question that comes to me from a site about what about this or how do I deal with that, my first question always is, what does board policy say? So our board policies, I think, are really crucial in helping us ensure that we are not only aligned with the law, but aligned in terms of our practices district-wide. And so the item tonight is coming before you as review and discussion. I've had some experience with a board policy committee in the past and did volunteer my services to be a part of this board policy committee, because I think it's really important that we do have board policies that are up to date. An example, I think, just of the need for some ongoing kind of oversight and maintenance is a couple meetings ago I brought a board item having to do with math placement and mathematics, and that board policy wasn't in our board policies. Even though we had discussed and approved that board policy somewhere along the line, that system of kind of the updating didn't happen. There's a board policy that I'm waiting to bring, that Human Resources is waiting for mine to bring theirs, and so I think there are great benefits to this committee. And while I know I've said before that the work of developing and revising policy isn't kind of the most exciting and scintillating, I certainly think it's important work, and would invite you now to ask any questions that you may have or make any comments on this review and discussion item.
So we have questions, comments. Yeah?
Okay, sorry, I feel like I'm talking a lot. I'm glad that you brought up that thing about the math placement policy, because it seems like when you researched it, you found that somehow it didn't get to Gamut to get updated, because otherwise it looked like Gamut, the service that we use to record our policies, was like a year plus, even a year and a half out of date. So hopefully we're not that far behind in terms of the gamut updating. It was somehow the ball got dropped at a different point. Is that correct?
I would like to say I hope so, but I think we have some that are delayed in getting to Gamut, and then Gamut also is kind of notoriously slow. But I think part of the building some systems around this would kind of identify, kind of where the responsibility lies for not only the updating, but then also kind of the constant monitoring of Gamut. So that might not be the work of the Board Policy Committee directly, but certainly that would be something I think that could come out of that committee in terms of identifying the responsible parties for that. So Kim, to answer your question, I don't know if that's the only one that we're behind on.
Okay, and I'm interested in how a policy, when the board passes it, there's the whole process of then an administrative regulation gets written and that comes back, and then the dissemination to the school sites and how they're notified about these changes, and then the implementation step. And it seems like things have there's this black box, and whatever's inside the black box needs to be taken out into the light and looked at pretty good. But I don't want to volunteer for the policy committee. But I think that this is a great idea and will help get us all onto the same page, and I think it will help smooth operations quite a bit when people can be confident that that they are acting in accordance to what the policy is for the district.
I think I can answer part of that. So one of the things that Marie and I are going to work on, as well as when we get the new Director of Student Services on board, is that when board policy is adopted and administrative regulations are created, that we take it to the next district leadership team meeting and train staff and share with them, not just give it to them, but to explain what does that board policy and administrative regulation mean. To answer your other question with Gamut, I have placed adopted board policy, and we've sent it to Gamut, and 6 months later it's still not posted. So there is a delay. I'm not saying that we are holding to fidelity, that we send everything the very next day, but I agree with Director Williams that there is a gap on the Gamut side. However, I think that we could probably mitigate that in having maybe someplace on our website where we keep our board policies updated. So you don't have to go to Gamut, that we could probably find a place to put it on our website.
I'll endorse that, and I do volunteer to be on the committee. And does anyone else have comments or questions on this? So the next step, since this is a board-appointed committee, is for staff to come back to the board with specific committee members for the board to approve. We should have probably 2 board members on the committee. So since Charlie's not here, we can nominate him. No, well, anyone else on the board who wants to be on the committee can volunteer.
I think we should strongly encourage at least one of the student board members to be on that committee. Or they could run in terror because it's college application season.
Do you want me to ask Charlie for comments to give you some time to digest that?
If he's still awake, he can comment.
Charlie, are you still here?
Yeah, I'm still here, barely.
Did you want to comment on this item?
Other than just to say I endorse the creation of the committee, I don't really have any further comment. I think it's a good idea.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so superintendent can contact other board members to see if somebody else wants to be on the committee and come back to us with names of people to approve as an action item in a future meeting.
Yes, so for clarification, you would like to have at least one student board member and one other trustee. Is that correct? Did I hear that correctly?
Well, it was Ross's suggestion we have a student board member on the committee,
or they figure out somebody
busy
at the high school that wants. Yeah, and it could be whatever junior out there really wants to
Did you still want to have 2 of the 5 seated board members?
I would like to. If you can't find 2 volunteers, then it'll be just me. But I think it would be better if there were 2.
So you're one. Okay, I will send out an email to all board members.
Thanks. Thank you, Ms. Williams. And that brings us to agenda items, matters introduced by the board.
Please bear with me going through my notes. For Facilities Committee, Member Trutain requested that staff come back with a report to the board on an update from the Facilities Steering Committee, the Ad Hoc Facilities Committee. I believe that I have a question. The second one was regarding the management salary schedule. I do have the 2. Did the board want this to come back as a review and discussion item or a review and action
Review
item?
an action item, but there's the possibility it'll get tabled. But we're going to try to vote on it.
Okay. Comprehensive health, sex curriculum come back on consent. I believe that is it.
That's all I can remember right now, but it's pretty late. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you. The meeting is adjourned.